Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 2023 St. Albert Business Breakfast. Or as I sometimes think about it, my annual reminder that my alarm clock is capable of going off at 5 a.m. and 5:09 and 5:18 and even 5:27. So I appreciate you all coming this early this morning. We've actually been throwing around, maybe next year we'll do the business brunch. My name is Mike Erickson, and I'm the City of St. Albert's Director of Economic Development. I'll also serve as your Master of Ceremonies this morning, and it's our pleasure to be back here at the Enjoy Center. It's a wonderful facility, and we're so fortunate to have it right here in St. Albert. I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that we're on Treaty 6 territory, traditional lands of First Nations and Métis peoples. As people, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, we share the responsibility for stewardship of this beautiful land. It's my honor to be able to address so many of our city and our region's business and political leaders, community champions, and civic partners. Thank you for taking the time out of your morning, out of your busy day to join us, and thank you for all that you do to make St. Albert and this region so extraordinary. I love the business breakfast because it provides us with the opportunity to highlight and celebrate the determination and achievements of our local businesses, the vision and commitment of our local leaders, and the strength and passion of our community. When we began planning this event several months ago, we identified that at its core, this event is about business, leadership, and community. We felt that with all the incredible things going on in the city, it would be interesting and inspiring to explore what might be possible, to dream big, and to imagine what the future could hold. The future of business, the future of leadership, and the future of our community. So since we'll be talking a lot about the future today, I thought it would be fun to start off this morning by setting the stage with what I'm calling 5 bold predictions for the future of St. Albert. Now, I was reminded by some wise legal minds that I should probably preface this part of the presentation with a forward-looking statement. So please do not go out and buy any stocks or any Bitcoin or any NFTs or anything like that based on these predictions. Actually went through and edited this for those that pay attention to the details. All right. Bold prediction number 1. When the Oilers win the Stanley Cup, the parade route will include St. Albert. Sure, why not? So as a tribute to the Oilers dynasties of the 1980s, I have little doubt that the Stanley Cup parade route will include a stretch up Mark Messier Trail right into St. Albert. Bold prediction number 2. St. Albert will grow denser and taller. As the city prepares to grow to 100,000 residents, expect St. Albert to be a city of choice for innovative vertical development. One only has to look at the mixed-use developments underway or proposed by many of our forward-thinking local developers to imagine what the future holds. Bold prediction number 3. St. Albert will continue to punch above its weight in the regional industrial market. In the last 5 years, St. Albert has quietly realized the second largest rate of growth of industrial inventory in the entire region, placing the city just behind industrial heavyweight Atchison. As our existing business parks are rapidly approaching full build-out, and as Lakeview Business District is set to come online in the near future, expect St. Albert to continue at this torrid pace. Bold prediction number 4. St. Albert will no longer be the best-kept secret in the regional office market. As businesses around the world continue to evaluate the future of office needs, and as employees are placing a higher value on well-being, workplace experience, and flexibility, look for safe, welcoming, and convenient communities like St. Albert to buck the current office trend and attract attention from unexpected major employers. Bold prediction number 5. St. Albert will cement itself as one of Canada's best mid-sized cities. As St. Albert emerges as a key employment centre, a regional service hub, and a complete community with all of the amenities and services that provide a high quality of life, the city will shake its bedroom community moniker, build on its history of best city rankings, and firmly establish itself as one of Canada's top mid-sized cities. All right, I hope you found that as fun as I did putting it together. We have a fantastic program for you today, filled with great presenters and fascinating insights. But before we get to our speakers, I've been entrusted with a few housekeeping items before we get too far into our program. So I'm going to point over to the right side of the room, or the left side for you folks, on our far east wall there. So over the course of this morning, this image will reveal itself as an imaginative, artistic concept of the future of downtown St. Albert in mosaic form. But we need your help to complete this mosaic. So we're asking you to take a picture of this event, maybe a picture of your table mates, the decor, even a selfie of yourself, and text the picture to the number on your place setting here, or there's a couple signs set up, so thank you, Mary Erin. So please, we need your help to build this. So our hope is that we can reveal this completed mosaic by the end of our program today. We have a wonderful door prize featuring an assortment of curated delights from our local St. Albert businesses. So I hope everyone's had a chance to enter their name into the draw or drop a business card in. The draw box is just by the entrance. So if I see people sort of heading over there, I'll know that you have not entered yet. But please do. We'll do that draw at the end of our program. And finally, if you've not been to the Enjoy Center or been in this room before, the washrooms are located just outside the doors to my left, your right. All right, I think you've had enough of me for a little while. So, St. Albert City Council has provided a strong vision for our community and developed a strategic plan that will help create a sustainable future as our city continues to grow. Here to bring greetings on behalf of St. Albert City Council, Mayor Kathy Heron.
I haven't had high heels on in like 3 years. So if I kick them off, you'll know why. Morning, everyone. My name is Kathy Heron, and I am, of course, the Mayor of the City of St. Albert, extremely proud to represent this community. I have a few of my fellow council colleagues here with me today. I've got Councillor Ken Mackay, Councillor Shelley Bermansky, and Councillor Mike Killick. You guys need to stand up and wave. And joining me from the region, we have actually a few. I think I've got Dave McCrae from Redwater is here somewhere. Hey, Dave, there you are. And I got Farrell O'Malley from the town of Gibbons, walked in with me this morning. And then up front here, we've got Bob Young from the city of Leduc, Simon Borsma from the town of Mornville, and Bill Daniluk from the city of Beaumont. Bob Young was the first person here at like 6:30 this morning, and he drove all the way from Leduc. Bill Daniluk was the last person this morning, and but he was with me at the Junos last night. So Mike Erickson, I'm not sure why you plan an event the day after the Junos and the same week as daylight savings, because really it is an hour earlier in my head. So thank you all for joining me today. This business breakfast is focused on the future of business growth and development and leadership and of our community. As the Mayor of St. Albert and the President of Alberta Municipalities, the future is foremost in my mind, as decisions made during this 4-year term of council live on much longer in a community. The future of business growth and development is accomplished through a strong collaborative model with our development community. Our Green Tape strategy reflects this partnership by increasing the speed and ease of permitting and eliminating any unnecessary red tape. I'm so proud to say that our development permits and business license applications have one of the fastest turnaround times in all of Alberta. We are implementing our Green Tape strategy within our statutory approval process for area structure plans and neighborhood plans. So working with UDI, which stands for Urban Development Institute, the city developed a 2-tiered approval process, which expedites development processes by reducing approval timelines. Super important for our business community. Not only are these processes encouraging economic growth and diversification, but we're also delivering more effective and efficient government services. And this efficiency is getting rave reviews. Wherever I go, I continue to hear accolades of St. Albert's business-friendly atmosphere. Recently, I attended a national commercial real estate conference with our ECDev team in Whistler. We had a great time. And I heard this many times. A new business owner from our financial industry raved about the incredible experience he had setting up his business right here in St. Albert and how quick and easy the process was. It is so important to us as a city to support the drive and passion of business owners and developers working in our community. It is really these people that are taking a risk with their futures, and they choose St. Albert, and that makes me proud. And with a strong supply of commercial and industrial land ready for development, St. Albert is positioning ourselves with some incredible new opportunities on the horizon for 2024. Start with Lakeview Business District. Economic prosperity continues to be a significant priority for Council, and we support an investment positive environment that encourages economic growth and the development of new and existing sectors. And Council's +1 objective is to advance the development of Lakeview. This is our newest and largest light industrial business district. With 600+ acres, Lakeview is poised to be have a future driver of employment with about 7,000 job opportunities. At full build-out, Lakeview is expected to realize $1 to $1.5 billion of investment, which will help ensure the long-term financial sustainability of this city. With the St. Albert West Area Structure Plan close to completion, city staff are preparing for infrastructure and utility servicing design for Lakeview Business District. Servicing designs are anticipated to begin in 2024, with full servicing completed by 2026. To make this ambitious vision a reality as soon as possible, the city is willing to take on some risk to front-end this project, but we can't do it alone. We're looking to provincial and federal partners to help cost-share this incredible investment opportunity. Investment in Lakeview Business District will maintain the momentum of economic growth along Ray Gibbon Drive, this corridor that was invested in about 5 years ago. This is going to improve Alberta's supply chain and will support growth within the region and all of northern Alberta. On either side of me, you will notice 2 images of Lakeview Business District, what it looks like today and what our vision is for the future. While this rendering is not an actual depiction of the area, it is a vision of what is possible. This exciting venture will, of many people, has been, decades in the making. It's a culmination of a vision of many different people. I think we made the decision to have this as our future industrial park in 2012. I was just a brand new councillor, and it's now coming to be a reality. So there's limitless potential, and not only for this specific area, but for St. Albert in general. Leadership is more important than one person or one council. While I can go on for days on the people and stories that come to mind when talking about leadership here in St. Albert, I'll just mention a few. Shannon Roshi, she's owner of Divine and Free Wellness Spa, and Michelle McDonald, owner of Tryst Wine and Bar on Small Plates, are 2 business leaders who are spearheading the business improvement area within our city's downtown. They're looking to collaborate with other like-minded businesses to focus on revitalization of downtown and reestablish it as the hub of our city. A grassroots effort such as this is so important to a community. It inspires others to get involved and take collective action to reflect change for the better. As part of our strategic plan, City Council is also trying to foster a downtown where people come together to celebrate, to shop, and to do business. Advancing the planning of the development of Millennium Park is a good example of this. This future park will be a vibrant community gathering space and a catalyst for our downtown. Accomplishments are never done in isolation. Having business owners and council champion and push in the same direction fosters a strong sense of purpose and brings us closer to achieving our goals. I'm also very excited about the new and innovative development that will be coming to Riverbank Landing at the old Holes Greenhouse site on Belrose Drive. With a mixture of residences, high-end retail, entertainment, and wellness services, this is a development you don't often see outside of Edmonton. Christian Benson, our Manager of Investment Attraction and Growth, will be talking more about Riverbank Landing shortly. A few other success stories from leaders in our community, including Alberco Construction Limited, completing a $70 million bridge project over the Athabasca River on Highway 813. Quadriel, approaching full build-out of their over 100-acre business park after starting construction on the first building in just 2018. And Johnson Builders, who is continuing their long relationship with Co-op and building a new grocery store in our very own backyard in Riverside Landing. Congratulations to everyone. When we talk about the future, in a personal sense, we think about the people who will be around us and the quality of life that we want. Our kids and our grandkids living in the same communities as us, enjoying short commutes to work, I could say 15-minute walks. And building a community that serves us all at any age. St. Albert is a place to invest and grow with our family, with your family, your business, and your dreams. These are the pieces that we're working on today to create a community of opportunity and well-being. In Council's strategic plan, we're focusing on responding to changing demographics, accommodating the diverse needs of residents, and continuing to foster an inclusive community where everyone can fully participate and feel welcome. On Saturday, I attended the International Women's Day Awards, and Mary O'Neill, our former MLA, said something that hit me, and I'm going to repeat it as often as I can so I don't forget. She said that diversity is a fact, but inclusion is an act, and that is what St. Albert is doing. We're actioning. This means supporting the development of various housing choices, whether you're heading to university, having a family, preparing for retirement, or moving here from another province or another country. We're also moving forward with the city's future community amenities site that will provide community and recreation opportunities for residents that will support their overall well-being, health, and inclusion. The type of opportunities that we're creating for residents go hand in hand with our investments in business growth and development. We are all aware of a labor shortage that Alberta is facing. However, at the same time, we're also experiencing a strong net migration to our province. By expanding our labor market with Lakeview and ensuring a strong connection of housing diversity and community amenities for residents, St. Albert will be part of the solution. We are not just a suburb anymore. We are a sophisticated mid-sized city, and we are building a community that people want to live in and move to. So when we work together and work with like-minded partners, innovators, and leaders, we achieve greatness. We have made some remarkable progress in this last year, and the best is yet to come. We will continue to prioritize economic prosperity and provide a diverse economy with business and investment opportunities for those who value a high quality of life. We will continue to focus on community well-being by fostering a community that embraces, respects, and supports people of all ages, cultures, and backgrounds. This is an exciting time for St. Albert as we take significant steps into our future and set the course to ensure our vibrant community thrives and prospers. Thank you.
I will take full accountability for scheduling this event today. But I'll just point out that the Junos actually moved their event to work around ours, so just want to put that out there. Thank you, Mayor Herron, and thank you to Council for making economic prosperity a priority for the city. It's Council's vision and plan that has helped guide us and empower us to do our work in helping businesses and the local economy every day. So thank you for that. I'd also like to take a quick moment to acknowledge and thank not just our incredible Economic Development Department staff, but all of the individuals within our organization that play a vital role in fostering economic prosperity, from those in corporate communications to planning and development to engineering, all the way through to our Chief Administrative Officer and our executive leadership. It's a team effort all the way through. Now, you may have noticed some chocolates or some St. Albert branded chocolates on your table, as you sat down this morning. These are no ordinary chocolates. These are extraordinary chocolates, specially created for the business breakfast and made right here in St. Albert by our very own Compass Chocolates. The company was founded in 2020 by Priya Windsor, a certified chocolatier and pastry chef. Oh, diplomate pastry chef, sorry, I should point that out. To say Priya is passionate about chocolate would be an understatement. It's this passion that pushes her to explore and source unique flavors and ingredients from all around the world. Please join me in welcoming Priya to say a few words about her chocolate journey. It's almost a long journey just from that table, hey?
Thank you, Mike, for your warm welcome, and thank you, everybody, for having me here today. Before I get started, I'm just going to take a selfie real quick with us for the mosaic. Everybody say cheese. Chocolate. Compass Chocolates is a local company with a global heart. The compass of my life has taken me all over the planet. I was born and raised in Newfoundland on the east coast of Canada. Don't let the tan fool you. After my parents moved from and immigrated from India, my family has been in Alberta now for 18 years, the last 7 being in beautiful St. Albert. In my travels, I've grown to truly appreciate the diversity this world has to offer. But a compass always brings you home, and that's what St. Albert has become, home. 5 years ago, I took the Baking and Pastry Arts program at the Northern Alberta Institute for Technology. This is where I unexpectedly fell in love with chocolate, after participating in a chocolate competition and winning a scholarship to the Chocolate Academy in Montreal. After finishing my program, I went back to Montreal and took some more training. I feel like it was an insatiable thirst for more and more and more chocolate. I spent the summer then in Newfoundland with family, and upon returning to St. Albert, the pandemic hit. So I launched my business, Compass Chocolates, at the beginning of a global pandemic. Ha ha. It actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise, and after things kind of settled down and we began to return to a more relaxed situation, I found great success here through local vendors who are interested in stocking our chocolates, local printers who put time and effort into capturing our brand, and my favorite, meeting people face-to-face at local markets and talking about chocolate and community. Integral to my business journey has been my membership with the Northern Alberta Business Incubator, NABI. They're local to St. Albert and provide an incredible support to small businesses just like mine, connecting us with mentorship and opportunities for growth. In a very short time, Compass Chocolates has had a significant impact. Telling people's stories and showcasing their flavors is at the heart of all that we do. Last year, we launched a Ukraine bar. It uses red Fife wheat, sourced from Gold Forest Grains here in Sturgeon County. Because I have a baking background, I was able to personally make sourdough bread and toast it with some brown butter and capture it with some Newfoundland sea salt in a multi-milk chocolate for a fundraiser for the ongoing crisis in Ukraine. For those of you who don't know, Red Fife was brought to Canada by the Ukrainians and is Canada's oldest wheat. Our beautiful community, St. Albert, was able to raise over $6,000 in support of the crisis, 100% of the profits going directly into empowering local Ukrainian chefs to feed their own people. Compass Chocolates is about feeding people, home and around the world. Which brings me to the Coffee Crunch bar you have before you. This bar is part of our classic collection. After all, coffee is loved by everybody who is forced to get up at 5 a.m. after daylight savings to come to a business breakfast, am I right? Whose idea was this? It's probably yours. This bar is locally handcrafted by yours truly. The 32% caramelized chocolate is delicious, a personal favorite. What makes it a global story is the coffee beans and cacao nibs that we use in the bar, both roasted in-house and from India, the place from where my own family immigrated, home and around the world. The truth is, our community is becoming increasingly diverse, and there's so much wonderful and new to experience and embrace. Chocolate is a disarming and delicious way to build global appreciation. Thank you for listening a little bit to my chocolate journey and what drives us at Compass Chocolates, St. Albert. We are your local chocolate company, and we can't wait to explore new flavor destinations together, both home and around the world. It's going to be a delicious year. Thank you.
My mouth is now salivating hearing all those descriptions. Thanks, Priya, for sharing your story and your passion with us. Who would have known that a chocolatier could be so sweet? Sorry, folks, I had to milk a chocolate pun. I even got a few Snickers with that one. Okay, sorry. For those that know me, know that I love puns. Thank you for taking the selfie. This is a good time to remind everybody to snap a few more pictures. I can see them starting to fill up slowly, so we need a few more. All right, time to introduce our next speaker. Tyler Way is a work and leadership strategist, investigating the patterns of success that shape our lives and organizations. He recently completed a year-long journey around the world, living in 15 countries, to explore influences into the future of work. He now drives to create positive change across numerous projects by bringing world-leading lessons to life, drawing from practice, research, and everyday people. Tyler teaches university programs in leadership, strategy, and change, and is co-founder of Young Leaders World, a multinational youth leadership organization that's worked with over 25,000 people across the globe. His attention is on helping people develop applicable skill sets, mindsets, and competencies to navigate the challenging nature of work. Here to help us look at the future through challenge, not change, is Tyler Way. Welcome, Tyler. Quick instructions, screen to go forward, red to go back.
1929, Lois Holes, born in Saskatchewan. A story you probably know well. Moves to Edmonton in 1948, moves to St. Albert in 1952, buys 200 acres out here, and plants seeds in just about every figurative and literal sense that blossom for 50 years and shapes a community that still to this day. I'm fascinated by stories of leadership like this. Not just the story, but the how. How do we do it? How do you and I and us, how do we make decisions today that will ripple into the future in a positive way for decades? I've literally gone around the world trying to understand that answer. And I'm going to take you on a journey around the world this morning. As we've all spoken about, it's early, so we're going to get on our flight, and we're going to explore lessons from around the world. I had the opportunity to live in 15 different countries from 2018 through to the beginning of 2020, trying to understand what's coming in the future. And it was a really fascinating set of lessons, in part because we got about halfway through and felt like this is hopeless. And then something else started to dawn on us. And this research started to take shape in a way that wasn't about becoming futurists, wasn't about trying to figure out when AI was going to take our jobs. It was about trying to figure out, what do we do on a Tuesday morning to, again, make decisions with our life's work to impact people for decades? Now, the business school side of me, forgive me, this is all rests on three words that I'd kind of share with us at the beginning. These three concepts, I'd say three beliefs. The first is this idea of leadership. Now, leadership can look like lots of different things. We all know that. It can look really pretty in books. But at the end of the day, leadership is this one ability. It's the ability to say, are we on a path that's working? And if we're not, can we create an inflection point? That's it. That's what leadership is asking of us. But it brings with it the next question, the next word. So fair enough, if straight ahead's not going to keep working for us, if we can't just keep doing the same thing, well then where to next? That word's called strategy. How do we pick that spot in the future, that place that's going to position us just so to positively impact ourselves and our communities around us? Strategy. But what pulls us up the road? That's this four-letter word called work that we all know well, drives us to great heights and to frustrations. Work is the engine that pulls us down the path each day. I'm fascinated by work. And I thought I'd share some stories like they should in the morning that center around an egg and coffee. First, the egg. This is a picture you may know, or at least a building you may know. The Duomo in Florence. Still to this day, it's the largest brick dome in the world. 4 million bricks that made up this dome. Incredible. Known worldwide. Started to be built in 1293. And only a mere 134 years later, it was complete. You see, the problem with the dome was that when it was started, they didn't know how it would end. They didn't know how to finish it. They actually didn't have the technology or the knowledge to complete the plans. And the first architect died, again, this is going on for well over a century, died quite early, and nobody could finish it. So this point of pride in the city was actually an eyesore for literally generations. So 1419, the city is kind of at its wit's end, doesn't know what to do about this building that literally just has an open roof and has for over a century, and they hold this competition. And they ask architects from around Italy to propose their plans, and they have this one day where people come and they pitch their ideas, and the first idea was this: we're going to cover it in wood. Now here's the problem. It wasn't called for a design with wood, and there also wasn't enough wood in all of Tuscany to finish it. Tough idea. Next idea was that they were going to put a pole from the bottom of it all the way up to the top that allowed the dome to be completed. But again, the plans didn't call for a pole, a pillar. Third idea, they ask this unusual thinker to come in. This is what he says: we're going to fill the dome with dirt, and we're going to mix money in with the dirt. And so when we're done, when we kind of finish this dome, we're going to ask villagers to come in, and they're going to clean up the dirt because there's money in it, and they're going to want to find it. You can see where the city's getting with these ideas, starting to be quite out there. And then this fourth architect comes in. He's not an architect. He's actually not a builder. He's been spending the last few years studying ancient ruins in Rome. And he has this idea, but he won't share what it is. His name is Filippo Brunelleschi. And he starts to identify what he believes will get this dome complete. Nobody will believe him. And really, why should they? He didn't have any background in this, but he puts out this challenge. He says, how about this? How about the architect that's fitting to finish this dome can find a way to balance an egg on one edge, on its top edge. So all the architects pick up this egg and they try for quite some time to balance it. And then he picks up the egg and he does this. And the egg stands up and they give him the contract. And sure enough, he finishes it. He found a way to make this thing work. The city believed in him, they believed in these ideas, and they found a way to think different. And so this morning is a morning in the spirit of balancing an egg on its top edge. You see, the future and our life's work are these two really fascinating concepts. They obviously fit quite closely together. What do we do today that creates a better tomorrow? It's the promise of work. It's the potential of work. And I saw stories all around the world that really spoke to this potential. This was in Mexico. We were in a tiny little village, really tiny, like a couple hundred people, hours from any major center. And we got connected to this family that makes candy for a living. And it's the picture of cottage industry. It was beautiful. We spent our day rolling these candies in the backyard. And about halfway through the day, her daughter comes out and says, like, glad you're enjoying meeting my family. I'm glad you're enjoying making these candies. Said, I'm now a lawyer because of these candies. And see, that's the promise of work. This idea that we can do stuff today, we can plant seeds today, we can invest in something today, make decisions today that will impact ourselves, impact others around us for so long. And that's the potential. But here's the hard part. It's not quite a straight line all the time. You see, I started to get fascinated with work. I started to actually fall in love with work because of a frustration with it. My first job was with the Oilers, and I thought I'd love it. On paper, I thought it was going to be the best job in the world, and it was a fantastic organization. We were even winning at that time to a certain extent. And I started to have this unease within me, and I wasn't sure if this was feeling like the place I wanted to be long term. And I started to write to CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. And I have no idea why this was the strategy back then, but I started to write letters, ask them about the future, ask them about what it would take with my decisions today to actually set up a future that helped other people, that made an impact. And started to receive these letters, but I also started to hear these stories of people from around the world. Yes, there were the CEOs, but there were people who were caught with work, struggling with work, frustrated with work, and feeling trapped. And I started to figure out, or trying to ask the question, well, what's happening with work today? Again, if we're trying to launch ourselves into the future, create these unbelievable potential opportunities, what is it about today that's making people feel caught? And I went way back. And it's a long story, but I'll give you the short version. You see, work was invented about 200,000 years ago. We're the only species in the world that does it. Every other animal in the world wakes up to the same life every day. And humans have found a way to invent a different future. We do it through this exchange, this belief, and this reality that I can do something that makes your life better and in return makes my life better too. We're the only species in the world to figure that out. And from that beginning, 200,000 years ago, all the way up till 1900, in every single country in the world, work was based on one thing: food. For the majority of people in every single country in the world, work was food until 1900. And then it changed. The most developed countries in the world started to have this movement from cities, or from farms into cities, and we started to get so good at producing food that we could now produce things. And it was a massive change, not just in work, but in our lives. For the first time in your lineage, you were leaving a farm, your hands were different at the end of the day, your body was different, your clothes were different, you were working in a different capacity. And that just started in about 1900 for the most developed countries in the world, en masse. But the change wasn't done then. 1950, we get so good at producing things. World War II comes to a close, and now we need a different kind of worker, those who produce thought. Again, cities change, people change, families change. We come home different at the end of the day. The most developed countries in the world have the majority of their workers for the first time ever just 70 years ago, when Lois Hole was setting up here. Just 7 decades ago, we're starting to see a massive transformation at work again. And that's not it. 1970, 1980, 1990, through the 2000s, we have another age change occur at work. We weren't just hunting and gathering. We weren't just in the agricultural age. We weren't just in the industrial age. We were in this new information age. And all of this change that didn't happen for 200,000 years, think of that wall as 200,000 years ago, all of work's history up until Invest right here in St. Albert was food. And then we have 3 massive changes, back to back to back, that just so happen to be sitting on the shoulders of you and me. You see, work's not harder today than it ever was before. It's not. But it's certainly much more complex. And we live in this, a suddenly changing world of work. And actually, you could probably just drop the work part. We live in a suddenly changing world. And for those who think a little bit differently about this stuff, think through imagery. There was this storm that rolled through the Caribbean in 1998. Worst storm to hit that area in over 200 years. It's called Hurricane Mitch. Started down the lower islands, came up north, and then dropped over top of Honduras for days. And apologies if you're connected to the storm in any way. It killed 20,000 people, over $5 billion worth of damage. And it rained into these hills for 4 days. They know that it rained 35 inches in 2 days. And they think that it rained 70 inches in 4 days. But in those areas where it rained the hardest, it wiped out all of the recording equipment. And all of that rain coming down to these hills did this overnight. And I'll let your eyes make sense of that for a moment. Took a river that obviously existed where it had for a long, long time, and it moved it overnight. And all of this stuff, this bridge, all of this infrastructure that felt like it made so much sense, was now obsolete. It's a funny story about this bridge. It was a Japanese company that actually built it, and they were so pumped that the bridge still stood, that this has been in all their marketing materials since that point. But it speaks to this idea of a suddenly changing world, that we can believe in something, bank on something, and then a change occurs, and we don't see it coming. And all of this stuff that seemed to make so much sense now feels like we have to question it. So I went around the world trying to solve that problem. You see, I work with businesses, I work with business leaders, I work with communities, try to figure out, how do we do it? How do we plant seeds today that we can trust in the future? Given this dynamic, that we live in a suddenly changing world, and the thing we thought we could rest on now may be obsolete. How do we do it? And what does it take? Now for the coffee part. So we spend our summers in southern Italy, in the Heel, and I've had the opportunity to go back to the same spot year after year after year. And the first year we went there, there's this coffee shop in the middle of the city. It's a beautiful coffee shop. It's kind of the point that you go to, and it's always busy. And the first year I go there, and I fall in love with this coffee. And that was my experience. Year 2, I go back, and now I know a little bit more about the region. And this region has 50% youth unemployment. Now, I work with youth, I work with businesses, I work in strategy and leadership, and I look at this owner behind the counter, and I think, if I could just have a few hours with you, if I could just ask a few questions, I'd start to wonder, and I'd start to ask you about why you just have one coffee shop. Why wouldn't you open a second? Obviously, this is a model that's working well. You could hire more youth. You could make this start to be a growing business across the region. And that was year 2, if I could just have some time with him. Year 3, I go back. And I watch this man who's been making coffee for 45 years hand me a coffee across a counter with a smile on his face. And I'm coming to this country to try to decompress, try to relax. And I think maybe the lesson actually isn't from me to him. Maybe the lesson's from him to me. And I started to get really curious about these lessons that were kind of falling between the cracks all around the world, that needed to be discovered by embedding in communities to try to understand, for people, what does the future look like? Not for economists, not for futurists, for people. What could they teach us about the future of work? Now, I want to share what we learned around the world. I'm going to share it through stories, and I want to share it with an idea at the beginning. And this idea is the one that kind of throws people when they start to think about the future. I learned it at Harvard, and not in the way you think. So our final stop of this Work Around the World trip was in Boston. We went to the Future of Work Center at Harvard and at MIT. So these are the leading thinkers in the world with teams who are pouring their lives into researching the future of work. So we went there to try to unpack our ideas with this group. And the conversation at Harvard with this group in February 2020, 3 weeks from the biggest work change we'd seen in over 7 decades, was around trucks. We didn't talk about COVID once. We talked about autonomous vehicles and when that would impact things. And in fact, the number 1 employer of people across the United States is drivers. And so this group was putting their brains and trying to predict when these changes would come, when it would impact people. And little did we know, in 3 weeks, the biggest change we'd experienced would hit. And in a year, we'd be asking for more truck drivers than we ever had in our history. You see, the future is really tantalizing. What we want to do with it is predict it. I know Mike's 5 predictions are going to come true, but aside from those, The future is really seductive. It makes us want to try to understand and know what's coming around the corner. But here's the idea, and it's an important one. We can't predict the future. We couldn't do it at Harvard, we couldn't do it at MIT, we couldn't do it around the world, and we met with experts all over the world, and they can't do it. They don't know what the future of work looks like in a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now. They don't know. And that was the hard part. Halfway through this trip, when we realized that, when we were going around the world trying to put together all of these lessons to come back and help businesses and communities figure out the future, our first lesson was we can't do it. If you think about digitization and demographics and geopolitics and what's happening in finances around the world, it's just too much. There's no way to figure out how all these pieces come together, which again sits on shoulders of you and me and a community like this in a really difficult way. If we can't predict the future, what can we do? And here's the answer. We can predict the challenges. We don't know when the storm will hit, but we know it will, so what do? We don't know when the opportunity comes, but we know it will, so what do? We can't predict the change, but we can predict the challenge. So here's 3 challenges and 3 lessons that I thought I'd leave you with today. The first one we came across in France. Now, this was our first stop. We went to the Alps, and we were meeting with dairy farmers and cheesemakers. Now, I don't have any background in cheesemaking, but it was fascinating, and it was beautiful. And so I remember kind of one of our first days, I was with our contact there. He was a farmer, and I said, if I ever die and come back as a farmer, this is the spot. It feels like postcards are jealous of this spot in the Alps. And he's kind of joking with me, and he knows what my shtick. And then he stops me a few minutes in, and he goes, to be honest with you, I got to kind of end this joking. He said, we have a really high suicide rate amongst our community. And I couldn't believe it. I was so thrown by that. And I apologized, and I said, can you help me understand what's happening? And he says, we're trying to understand it too. He said, here's our best guess. He said, farming's always been hard. It was hard for my grandparents, hard for my parents, it's hard for me. That hasn't changed. He said, but here's how farming used to work. I'd produce the milk, I'd give it to my neighbor down the street, they'd produce the cheese. It would show up at a little shop down the street. We'd buy it, we'd eat it. Whether it turned out good that year or not, we had a conversation about the cheese. All of this hard work felt like had a resolution in people sitting around a table eating this cheese together. He said, here's what happens now. I make the milk, I put it on a truck, and it goes to a place that makes cheese. And I have no idea where that is. And I have no idea who eats it. And I have no conversation at the end of the day. And he said, what we're starting to realize is that that's impacting farmers at the deepest level possible, to the point that they're taking their lives. And again, these lessons that would just fall between the cracks. But what we were starting to discover around the world was that we think the future is about technology, change. The future is just like how life has always been. The future is about people. The future is about people. You see, the challenge of the future is that we want to kind of race down these paths. We want to think that the transaction outweighs the transformation. And they got caught there in France. And so he said, here's what we're doing now. We're actually reversing that. Now, not every farm can do this, and not every business in the world can do this. But what we're doing is we're reprioritizing the relationship and doing that in all sorts of ways. And reprioritizing the relationship allows us to weave in these pieces of work that matter long term. Again, we're not just trying to set up the next couple of years here, we're trying to set up the next couple of generations. You see, I started to get really fascinated by this idea of working together and teamwork, and as a result, started to try to track down the world's greatest leaders in this space. And had a conversation with this man. His name is Chris Bosh. You may remember him from the Toronto Raptors and the Miami Heat. Chris Bosh is a basketball player, he's a Hall of Fame player, and we had a conversation about teamwork, had a conversation about working together. And I said, can you remind me about this story? Because for those who don't kind of track this stuff, there was this story around Chris Bosh in 2010. He signed on the Miami Heat, this basketball team, with 2 other Hall of Fame players, LeBron James and Dwayne Wade. Now, it was the first time 3 superstars came together, and the idea was that this was just a foregone conclusion, that they'd win the championship year after year after year. Problem is they didn't. Year one, they didn't. And so I asked them about that locker room. I said, can you take me into that spot? No cameras around, just a team sitting in a locker room. In that moment, you've lost. After the prediction was that you'd win, easily win. I said, what was happening in that space? And he said, here was the conversation. 3 superstars that had all given up quite a bit to come together. And what do? Do we now individualize? Do we make this problem simple? Do we go to another team, recognize this as a failed experiment? Do we move into our next transaction? Or do we rebuild this relationship? And they chose the latter. And they won the next 2 championships. There's something that happens when we come together as people, when we embrace human connection. We saw it all around the world. The challenge is that we want to let that be minimized. We want to think that the future is about making the right move, the next transaction. And that can be part of it. But it's done through people. And when it's done through people, it has ripple effects long term. And they also help us see around corners. You see, the first challenge is we can't do it alone. We can't tackle the future alone. And so here's my challenge to you. What would happen if you made one more connection today? What would the multiplication of this room look like? If you just found one more person to shake the hand of, to make a connection with, to have a conversation with, to truly understand at a human level. It sounds small. Yet this was the biggest lesson we took from 15 countries around the world, over 200,000 kilometers, over 45 Airbnbs, countless conversations. Embrace the relationship. It's what changes the future. But there's the next challenge that shows up. You see, the future, because we can't predict it, and I get the pressure that comes with that. We work with youth. Can you imagine what's sitting on their shoulders? Because we can't predict the future, what happens is we start to have some mistrust in it. We start to doubt it. If we can't see what's coming, well, then what do? How do we make any kind of decision? How do we have faith in anything? And so this was the second challenge that we were seeing across communities. We found that there was this split that was occurring. Communities that were finding themselves really disconnected. They were finding themselves doubting everything. And as a result, they were just getting complacent. They were getting stuck. They didn't know how to make any kind of decision. And so they felt like they'll just hang on. They'd play defense to change. We started to feel communities all around the world get into that situation. So I reached out to somebody who's, again, one of the leading thinkers in this space. His name is Dan Pink. He's written a number of books, like Drive, or When, or The Power of Regret. He's written 7 books, 5 of them were New York Times bestsellers. And he thinks about change. He writes about work. And I said, we work with businesses and we work with youth, and here's my lesson. We can't predict the future. And he said, thank goodness that you're saying that, because we can't. I said, well, then what do you tell people? And he gave me this analogy that I think really helps make sense of how this works. He said, when you get in a car at night, and it's a little bit foggy, it's a windy road, maybe it's in the mountains, there's no way in the world you can see your final destination. You can't. He said, but you can see every single corner in time. Your headlights can see just far enough that they can see every single corner, and you can trust that you're going to make every turn along the way. And this is how the future starts to challenge us. We want to see the final destination. We want to be able to map out every single way that we're going to get there, every single configuration of how this is going to go, and we can't. But here's what we can trust, that our headlights can see far enough. You see, lesson 2 around the future of work is that we will need to trust. Big and small. We're going to need to trust each other. We're going to need to trust what we see. We're going to need to trust the pieces that feel like that's now in my headlights. Maybe I can't see it all, but I can still trust that. And I can make decisions based on that upcoming turn. And that can be enough. Again, I work in strategy. I work in that place where we're trying to position ourselves in the future. What we want to do is be able to predict that 10 years out. What we're actually finding is that what's best is to really focus on the next decision, because you can see it. And once you make that, you can see the next. So lesson 1, we can't do this alone. Lesson 2, we're going to need to trust. And here's my challenge to you in that. What change in your life, in your business, in your community can you now clearly see? What change do you know is coming? What corner can you see coming? Trust it. Have that conversation with the people you meet. Have that conversation with those around you. That change you can trust. Not the 10-year change, that one. But it brings with another challenge. You see, again, this idea of what do we do with change? Do we play defense? Do we accept it? Or do we go to offense? Here's another conversation. I didn't know who this was. His name is Keith Krach. Now, Keith and I got connected, and I started to become really fascinated. And at first, I thought that I was reading things incorrectly. Here's Keith's story. He was the youngest VP in GM history. This is back in the 80s when GM had over 1 million employees. 10 years before that, he'd been a welder. Something's happening there. How did this person do it? 26 years old, VP of GM, and then leaves. Goes to Silicon Valley and he starts a company. First one failed. Second one builds for 10 years and sells for $500 million. Interesting. A couple years later, he starts the next company. Within 4 years of that, they'd exited that for $40 billion. Okay, something's happening with this track record now. That business, it's called Ariba, now transacts, it's a B2B platform, now transacts more than PayPal, Amazon, and Alibaba combined. $40 trillion a year still flow through that business. He then feels like, I'm probably done work for the next little while. I'm not too keen to keep going. Can kind of get into other things. He started to give back through universities and through post-secondaries. And then he comes across this business. They knock on his door in about 2005. It's small. It's called DocuSign. Had about 50 employees. He then becomes chair and CEO of that and grows it to 1 billion users. All right, the story's starting to make sense to me now. He then leaves that business and gets asked to go into public service and does so, and 2 years later gets nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. You see, Keith Krach has found a way to just take the next step when others are kind of a bit stuck. And in fact, sometimes some bold steps. Now, one of the bold steps he took is he actually went to Taiwan when he was in public service. A bold step. You see, Taiwan and China and the States are in this big kind of microchip challenge right now. So he went there to try to understand what's happening. And when he landed, they sent 20 fighter jets overhead. The highest ranking diplomat to be in Taiwan from the States in over 20 years. He was making bold decisions, but he was willing to. You see, the challenges with change is that we can't see what's coming, so we need to do it with others. Because we can't see what's coming, we want to start to doubt it, but we can trust that we see the next turn. And if we can do all of those things, the next lesson is we must be willing to transform. We must. When I was in southern Italy, I was doing a conference for a financial group in southern Italy. Beautiful day, fig plantation, pool in the middle, unbelievable surroundings. We stopped for a 6-course lunch, and here was the concern at the end of it, that we'd only stopped for 2 hours, not 3. So they didn't have time to swim in the pool. And we had this unbelievable day, and we had these moments all the way through, and at the end, there was this reporter who was sitting in the room. He said, "Here, Tyler, I get it. We create a beautiful life. I understand that. But you've just been around the world. Are we transforming fast enough?" And it's the question that all of us need to be asking. The future is a suddenly changing world. It makes you want to get into a defensive mode sometimes, but we must be willing to transform. And we start to split communities all across the world, who is and who isn't. Case in point, North Korea and South Korea in the 1960s were on par in economics. GDP was exactly the same across both countries. And then one decides to transform and one goes down a different path. All around the world, you can start to see the differences of groups that say, we will invest in ourselves, we will invest in change, even though we don't know where this is going, we can trust these pieces, we can work together, and we can start to understand how change comes together. You see, the future is going to ask 4 things of people. Every single one of us, you can talk about this with your kids, you can talk about this with those around you. The future of work is going to ask 4 things from people. The first is, can you find work? Can you find a skill set that matters? Can you find a way to impact other people's lives with your skills? That's the first thing that's going to be asked of you in the future. The second is, once work shows you it's changing, once work shows you it's hard, what will you do? Defense or offense? And once you can do that, can you stay relevant? Can you refresh your skills, transform over and over and over again as a community to embrace the things that matter in that moment for those who are there and start to shape your future? And the fourth piece is, if we can do all those things, can we stay healthy? Can we deal with the pressure, deal with the uncertainties? Can we deal with what's coming in a way that allows us to say, we're still in it together and we're still taking care of each other? So my first challenge to you is, what would happen if you met one more person today? I then challenge you to say, what was the change you could now see? And I challenge you to figure out how you're going to act on that change. How are you going to be willing to transform? You might have thought the future conversation today was going to be about AI, about ChatGPT that can do our homework, or banks in Silicon Valley that are going under this week. We want our brains to go. It's a fun place to play. I have those conversations all the time. These are the lessons I actually think matter about the future. We can't do it alone. We have to trust, and we have to transform. I want you to think about your morning this morning, albeit early. You woke up, got out of probably a soft bed in a warm place, warm room, got into a hot shower, had some wonderful food. Here you drove down roads that had been built for you, lights that guided you along the way, pulled into a parking lot in a beautiful facility like this. And what you were experiencing over and over and over again was the generations of work that have come before you, that have figured out how to build this world, build all of this stuff that we get to just live in. You see, every single generation that's come before us has stepped up to the line of the hardest problems the world has ever seen. They've stepped right up to that line. And it's always been there. Every group that's come before you has had to deal with that line. And they've had to look into this abyss of the future, and they've had to decide, what do we do? Do we get into defense, or do we go into offense? And leaders across your community over and over and over again have found a way to figure out a way to invent the future, to make it better, to plant seeds that blossom now and into the future for decades. You've got a shining example up behind me here. You see, I love the power of work, and I love the power of community when people come together and say, yes, this is hard, but it always has been. So are we willing to take on the challenge nowadays? And my bet is that you are. I want to thank you this morning. I'm cheering you on. I'm excited to see where this community goes. Thank you very much.
Wow, what a, whoops, couldn't have predicted that. It's a great message, Tyler. So, can't do it alone. We have to trust and transform. Thank you. It's fantastic. Well, and I also learned another important lesson this morning is that you should never, what's the word I'm looking for? You should never question or never judge somebody who brings their own hard-boiled egg to a business breakfast, right? Oh, it's, I thought it was a hard-boiled egg, sorry. All right, our final speaker this morning is Christian Benson. As the sun starts to come out here. Christian's the manager of our investment and attraction branch with the city's economic development department. He's provided his talents to local government for the past 18 years with various roles focusing on business development, alternative energy, environmental compliance, and public operations. In addition to a Bachelor of Commerce certification in economic development, municipal government leadership, he recently completed his MBA with Royal Roads University. Here to provide us with the St. Albert Investment and Development Update, Christian Benson.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, all. I'm Christian Benson, and I work with the city's Economic Development Group as Manager of Investment Attraction and Growth. Together with my colleagues, we work with businesses in the development community to grow St. Albert's economy, expand and retain our existing businesses, and draw new investment to St. Albert. This morning, I'm excited to be providing an economic update for the city. Inspired by today's theme of the future of, I'm framing the economic update this morning in the context of now, near, and next. Now focuses on the present and includes projects and development that are already occurring today in our community. The near time frame is within the next few years, and these developments are likely already approved or in construction. The near time frame is exciting as it focuses on what we know and what we expect to occur. Finally, the next time frame really is future focused and includes possibilities for St. Albert, and will try and anticipate new trends and technologies that will impact us and the next generation of St. Albertans. This is the residential sector now, and it's one of my favorite photos of St. Albert. This one photo shows how St. Albert balances nature and greenery with recreation, culture, and living. Although the future of St. Albert is yet to be written, it can be assured that we will remain green and with a commitment to balancing both development and nature. Today in St. Albert, we are approximately 70,000 people strong. In Alberta, we're listed as the 8th largest city in the province, but obviously number 1 in your hearts. By housing type, St. Albert in the now is predominantly single-family detached homes with a mix of semi-detached, row houses, and a fast-growing market in apartments. Through the last 5 years, the city has averaged approximately 450 new residential housing units per year, with a high watermark of 701 units in 2017, and the second strongest year just occurring in 2022 with 557 units. New single-family housing in St. Albert may be considered our bread and butter, but the market trend in rentals and apartments regionally has also influenced new builds in St. Albert. As you can see, apartments are highly variable, and I like to see the W in the charts as, wow, this is hard to predict. However, market trends indicate that apartment units will emerge more predominantly in coming years. 2022 was a strong year for residential building in St. Albert, with over $156 million in total value built in the residential sector. There is plenty of reason for optimism in Alberta and St. Albert in the near future. The residential sector will continue to grow as Alberta experiences unprecedented growth in population. Recent stats suggest that both net immigration and interprovincial population growth in 2022 result in the largest population increase in Alberta in almost 40 years at a growth rate of 1.3%. It's clear to see why people are choosing the Edmonton region as a destination to live, as highlighted by the chart here. Edmonton's strong household income levels, combined with housing affordability, results in one of the lowest percentages of household income to cover ownership cost amongst the major cities in Canada. St. Albert is adapting as well. The city's development community and home builders have introduced new product to the market that will help all income and life stage levels and demographics find housing, including new rental and apartment units, as well as new housing product not typically seen in St. Albert, such as zero lot line and lane housing. This slide shows examples of new residential product in St. Albert now and in the near future. Whether it's the award-winning new housing product from Aberton's Midtown neighborhood, located just across the road from us today, upscale condominiums in Boudreaux Communities Botanica, or laned housing product in Strata's Nouveau neighborhood. St. Albert is growing. This slide shows examples of existing or near future developments in residential neighborhoods in St. Albert. Growth will come in existing neighborhoods as they continue to build out, such as Melcor's Jensen Lakes, Averton's Midtown, and Sidex's Village-Rue neighborhoods, or newly planned communities, such as Rohit's Churot neighborhood and Landrex's Urban Village. These neighborhoods, already developed and currently building out, will add approximately 28,000 new residents to St. Albert and will bring us very close to 100,000 residents within the next 15 years. And apologies to Tyler, because I'm going to try to do some future projecting as well. So what do we expect next? What does the housing future bring for St. Albert? As we see St. Albert grow as a mid-sized city in Alberta, we can expect more density and more vertical growth. Developments such as Amacon's Grandin Park Village downtown or Boudreaux's community's Riverbank Landing provide examples of beautifully new design communities that are larger, more dense, and taller that the future will bring. And to have some fun, I got some wild guesses on what next we can expect for the future of housing in St. Albert. As mentioned, housing will get denser and taller, and we may see more prefabrication and new housing build materials, where traditional housing is built off-site and assembled on residential lots. Undoubtedly, we will see the integration of technology more in homes, both to accommodate new tech and electrification of personal vehicles. Climate change may change the way we build new houses, both to accommodate net zero home design and the potential for unpredictability in climate. There are also predictions of new neighborhoods will have to be built to accommodate autonomous vehicles and delivery units, likely for all the Amazon packages and skip the dishes deliveries that we love to order. The future will shape not just residential, but also our commercial and office sectors in St. Albert. St. Albert has already been defined by our strong commercial and office sectors, with just two examples here of product in Campbell between the Synergy Center and KDM Management's offices. Starting in the office sector, St. Albert and other suburban office markets have been tested by the pandemic and have emerged thriving. As seen between the two charts here from Q4 2022 reports from CBRE and NAI Commercial, the suburban office market is seeing positive absorption and lower vacancy than urban settings. According to recent reports by CBRE, this trend in lower suburban office vacancy is one not seen before in Canadian commercial real estate, with 70% of Canadian suburban markets reporting declining vacancy in the post-pandemic environment, providing a very optimistic outlook for real estates in markets such as St. Albert, maybe helping Mike achieve one of his bold predictions of office markets within St. Albert. By the end of 2022, there's growing and renewed optimism in the commercial markets in the Edmonton region and specifically in St. Albert. While the region overall has a commercial vacancy of 4.3%, currently St. Albert is sitting at 3.7% vacancy, down from a high in the pandemic of 5.8% in 2021. Consumer behavior appears to be shifting back to in-person shopping as well. Despite growth in e-commerce and the sustained effects of inflation, a recent survey conducted by CBRE indicates that 7 out of 10 shoppers prefer the in-store experience over online. While it's assumed that younger consumers would prefer e-commerce, the Gen Z cohort are less likely to shop online than millennials. In the near future in St. Albert, commercial and office developments will follow our growth as the city expands to the north, northwest, and west with a push to 100,000 residents. These opportunities will come in the form of new developments to the areas to service growth in St. Albert and the region. But there's also enthusiasm and support from the city in the redevelopment of existing commercial areas as well, such as the newly planned Sorrentino Center on St. Albert Trail and a commitment to the city's historic downtown district through a revitalization strategy. Looking at the areas of new growth in St. Albert, there are existing opportunities and near-term development in areas such as Rohit's Churot, the Lakeview Business District, Landrex's Urban Village, Sidex's Village-Rue, Hopewell's Riverside Landing, Cape's Bellevue Village, located just south of us today, and Boudreaux Community's Riverbank Landing. What does the future hold for commercial and office in St. Albert? As mentioned, there's a commitment from the City Council toward downtown revitalization that will see redevelopment and new development in the city center. The office market will continue to thrive in suburban centers with a high emphasis on amenities such as parking, connectivity to trails and recreation, and safety. Experts also predict more localization of retail products to negate supply chain and inflation pressures. Finally, automation and delivery will see increased innovation, like the robot seen here on his way to deliver important items like pizza and Slurpees. Finally, we're going to look at the industrial sector in St. Albert in the context of now, near, and next. As exemplified by a few businesses on this slide, St. Albert has a strong existing industrial sector with expectations of continued growth in the near future. It won't come as a surprise to many in this room, but the industrial market in the Edmonton area is booming. Regionally, we are seeing the lowest availability and the vacancy of industrial property since 2015, with an astounding 10 consecutive quarters of positive industrial absorption in the Edmonton region. St. Albert is experiencing this boom in industrial as well, with the lowest vacancy rate in the region at 0.6% as of Q4 2022. St. Albert, as mentioned, has seen over 1.4 million square feet of industrial property built since 2018, much of which is absorbed the very day of occupancy. Available industrial land is hard to come by at the moment in St. Albert. However, the near and next for St. Albert provides to accommodate this incredible market for industrial lands in the Edmonton region. Currently, there's only a handful of development opportunities remaining in Riel and Campbell Business Parks in St. Albert. Just south of us is Quad Riel's Anthony Henday Business Park, with 2 new Class A industrial properties in development, buildings 2A and 2B on Richardson Drive, representing almost 500,000 additional square feet of industrial opportunity, with the remaining 15 acres on this site for near future development. Within the Campbell Business Park, there's a handful of development opportunities ranging from 1.3 acres to 3.2 acres, with build-to-suit readiness working with Colliers. Upon completion of these 2 areas in Campbell and Riel, the city's existing inventory of industrial lands will be exhausted. Which brings us to the near-term opportunity in St. Albert, the Lakeview Business District. This area in the west end of St. Albert, bordered by Big Lake and Carrot Creek, is approximately 600 acres and has been identified as the city's next employment area. As seen today, Lakeview represents exactly what St. Albert is known for: opportunity for development with a strong connection and balance with the natural environment. Lakeview could be considered in the context of next, the future range. However, Lakeview is an opportunity that is very much in the near future. With development readiness on the horizon of 2025, the city can expect industrial development, employment, and the future of business in the next 5 to 10 years. Lakeview represents a tremendous opportunity for residents and businesses in St. Albert for growth and expansion. This area of 600 acres will see home to between 5,000 and 7,000 jobs, depending on intensity of use, employing St. Albert residents and hosting St. Albert businesses. Logistically, St. Albert is located at the convergence of major highways, Class 1 rail, and intermodal terminals. These advantages suggest the community is well positioned to support medium and light industrial activities associated with agribusiness, advanced manufacturing, clean technology, construction, health and life sciences, as well as major logistics and warehousing operations. St. Albert is well positioned in the metropolitan region, providing access to a market of 1.5 million people. It's indicated as Canada's 5th largest metro area. So I will end the presentation today on a high note. The city is strongly committed to bringing this area shovel-ready and ready in the next couple of years to open this area to new employment and development. As mentioned, the area structure plan and neighborhood structure plan for this area are underway, with anticipated approval this year. Underground utility and transportation servicing is projected to begin in 2024, with the potential for goal of shovel-ready land in Lakeview by 2025. The city sees Lakeview as one of the most exciting development opportunities in Alberta, with tremendous potential for further diversification and strengthening of St. Albert's already strong business environment. With that, I want to thank you all very much for your time and attendance today at this morning's business breakfast. I'm going to pass the mic back to our MC, Mike Erickson, for his final remarks and a draw of the door prize. Thank you.
So So as you can see, there's a lot of activity going on and a lot of great success stories now, and we certainly expect in the near future. And that's the business card draw. Thank you. I actually just recognize that I'm remiss in not acknowledging Pat Nickel, who is a dynamo for our economic development team and really the driver of this event. So maybe just a quick round of applause for Pat. Thank you. All right, and we are right on time. Wow, I'm going to get you guys out of here before 9. So the winner of our door prize, as I mentioned, a fantastic assortment of sweets and goodies and treats from local establishments, Jennifer Olofsson. There we go. So we'll find you afterwards and yeah, make sure you get the basket. All right. We're just like, could 8 or 9 people please send a photo to the marker on your screen? Maybe as I wrap up my final comments, it'll just fill itself in here. So I'll just get you to focus your attention there over to my right, your left. So what you can see there is an imaginative future concept of downtown, which almost is eventually revealed. So, this really is just a highlight that there's so much potential in our downtown, and I hope that you'll all maybe take a closer look and go up and see some of the details within there. So this was meant to be a creative concept to show some of the opportunities and potential for people of all ages and all abilities. There's opportunities to eat and drink on patios, play on whimsical street furniture, soak in live music, appreciate public art, shop for local products, and come and go by bus, bike, car, and many more. So as you can see throughout this presentation, really trying to highlight and focus on a lot of successes right now, but really all the future potential that St. Albert has. So with that concludes our program. I hope you all enjoyed yourself. I hope that you all learned something new and interesting or found something inspiring or insightful. I sure did. St. Albert has a bright future ahead. Have a great rest of your day.